you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
I'm Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. One of our latest things that makes official. Welcome to over 16 years, 24 episodes of the Chris Voss Show, the owner's manual to life. That's what this podcast is about. We have all these amazing people come on, tell their stories, their journeys, their lessons of life, their stories. Stories are, of course, the fabric of life, as always we say as well. And you can probably learn everything you need to know on the Chris Voss Show at this point. And if it's not there, we're packing in more authors to do that. So for the show, your family, friends, and relatives, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss on the TikTokity, and Chris Voss as a Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about his novel. It's kind of interesting that's out, and some of his work and what he does and what he writes, and of course, maybe what he's going to be writing in the future. Joseph Stanley joins us on the show. He's the author of the book that came out June 15th, 2024. It is called Collective Vengeance. A 27-year-old coerced abortion jeopardizes a Supreme Court nomination. And we're going to get into the deets on that book and what's inside and all that good stuff. Joseph, his writing was inspired by journaling assignments during counseling as he prepared for retirement. After a 35-year career in management consulting, he paired his skills for explaining complex subjects and relating to audiences with learning the nuances of fictional writing. Joe is an American author and storyteller. He now studies the art of writing and is in the business of engaging readers through poems, short stories, novels, as well as sharing content about his journey as a person. Welcome to the show, Joseph. How are you?
Doing great, Chris. How are you?
I am excellent. It's wonderful to have you on the show. Give us .coms. Where do you want people to get to know you better?
Check out my website, Stanley, Stanley, writes, and that's WRITES.com. Information's there on me and my book, and we keep adding things to the website. Also, I'm on Facebook.
There you go. So you've got at least a couple books I can see on your website out. How many books do you have?
2.
There you go.
One is a collection of free verse poems with my interpretations to them, which is how I started writing. And then the first political romantic thriller, Collective Vengeance.
There you go. So give us a 30,000 overview of what's inside your new book, Collective Vengeance.
Collective Vengeance is about a private equity specialist in New York who collaborates with a pardoned felon, and he helps her exact revenge or vengeance for a 27-year-old problem. When she was 16, she was raped at a fraternity party.
Uh-oh.
And now she's in New York finding out the gentleman who did that is up for the Supreme Court Chief Justice nomination, and it takes off from there.
Oh, wow. So there you go. That's kind of some interesting topics and challenges there. What was it that made you decide, the plot of this book and the characters?
The plot of the book started in a different direction about two people who met in New York, discovered hidden secrets about each other, and it evolved when I was going through counseling for depression because I was going to retire at the time.
Oh, wow.
I wrote a free verse poem called Storms, and it evolved into, I thought I could write a novel, and it kept tumbling on. There was actually, going back about 8 years ago, a Supreme Court nomination, not for Chief Justice, but one that had similar overtones to it. And I adapted that and kept writing and ended up with what a lot of people think is more reality, but it's fictional.
There you go. Well, definitely hits on some topics that are, top of news these days. Abortions, assault, so the Supreme Court activity, of course, is always on a daily basis. It seems to be the thing. Tell us about some of the characters in the book. Who are the protagonists and all that good stuff?
The key two protagonists are Samantha Miras, the woman who was had the problem, and the gentleman she hires is kind of a professional equalizer. If you reflect back on what happens in that movie and TV series, and Jack Gallagher is a pardoned felon. They partner up. He's helping her. They assemble. Gosh, the book has 15 characters in it, ranging from a Vietnam War photojournalist turned private investigator. The antagonist, it's kind of multiples there. There's a secret political organization called Aegis, which is headed by people backing the Supreme Court nomination. And they're fighting, well, not fighting, but they're against what Samantha and Jack are trying to do as they try to stop them. And it has a lot of twists and turns and surprises as it goes on.
There you go. So what got you into writing? Sounds like you had quite the career, and then you decided to start writing. Tell us about your journey. When did you kind of start writing? When did you find that you had a knack for it and finally make a decision to, I'm going to put this stuff in a book?
Well, my writing began actually, I was a healthcare management consultant for 40 years, and I wrote a lot of white papers, instruction manuals for clients. And when I went through counseling for depression, my counselor got me to do daily journaling.
Oh, wow.
And as I wrote those, they created poems, but then evolved into, I got locked into this storm sequence and people trying to overcome difficulties and how could I weave it into a story. I have to give a lot of credit to my collaborator, my wife, because as she read what I wrote, she'd say, well, what if this happened? And what if that happened? And sent me in new directions. And after about 5 years of writing and research, it came to be.
There you go. 5 years and lots of research and stuff. What were some of the things that you were trying to research and trying to understand?
Quite a bit about the Supreme Court and political organizations, but
okay.
The story is set in New York City. So I made numerous trips there to ride the subways, locate restaurants, hotels, landmarks that I would use in the book. And it proved beneficial, made it easy to write the context or be able to give people a picture of where it was happening.
There you go. Yeah, that in the ground stuff is really important. In fact, some of my, what some of the authors on the show do, they tell me is they'll pick places to go that they want to go on vacation.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, I'm gonna. They tell the book publisher, yeah, I need to go to France. I'm writing this book about France. I need to go to France and do some on the ground wink wink research there.
There you go. So
just a tip for your future books. That's the angle I guess everyone likes to use. I thought it was kind of funny. But so when did you went through some depression retiring where you were just worried about retiring? You didn't want to retire? You wanted to give it up? What were some of the things you're running into with depression?
I had my own company. My wife and I had it for 40 years. And a lot of things happened at once. My counselor called it a perfect storm. I was 72 years old then, so 8 years ago. I was getting ready to retire. We were going to sell our home of 25 years, downsize to a condo, sell our company to the employees so they could run it. And it was a lot of collisions. And
Mhm.
The work I did for our company, I was my wife always called it the rock star. I ran around the country as the
Mhm.
face of the company, got a lot of adulation, and stepping out of that spotlight just added to the turmoil. And I told her I didn't need to see a counselor. And the first thing the counselor told me was, "You really need to see me." So, um, and it turned out to be a good thing.
There you go. There you go. The Now in the book, do you see a future books coming out of this? Are you going to be, is this maybe a series, or reusing the protagonist in the story, or do you see what's the future for you right now?
Well, it's a series of 3 books called the Vengeance series.
Hmm.
I'm working on the sequel, which is Counter Vengeance, and
Ah,
then there's a third one out there, and the second book rolls everybody back into the new book with new challenges. So it's been interesting to write it as a continuation, and then also at the same time plan for the third book.
there you go. And so what do you can you tease out anything about the second, third book? Is there any sort of, I know you can't give stuff away, but anything you can tease out to us?
Just all the relationships continue. Um, the major antagonist from the first story really lights it up in the second one, and there's a good guy in the first book um, that was my favorite character,
Mhm.
and he takes over a major role in the second book. So it's a continued struggle, but it shifts from a political scene to more a one-on-one personal sort of vengeance. And
Ah,
the bad guy coming back to get vengeance for how they tried to squelch him in the first book.
ah, revenge and
Yeah.
vengeance.
Yes.
It's always something along those lines that people are up to. What do you think people find the most enduring about the book, or what's the feedback you've gotten so far? Where they're, where you're, people are giving you feedback and going, yeah, I like this part of it, their aspect of the book.
People like the collection of characters.
Mhm.
They really like, I write what I call potato chip chapters.
Uh-huh.
All my chapters are short, maybe
Okay.
somewhere between 500 and 1,200 words, and they always have a cliffhanger at the end that picks up in the next chapter. And I call them potato chip chapters because it's hard to read one chapter and put the book down. And
Oh.
what a lot of people tell me is that's exactly true. It was hard to put it down. It's fast paced and easy read, and very intriguing with the characters and what happens to them.
Ah, there you go. Well, it should be interesting. So, do you have any advice for wannabe authors, people that are thinking about writing books and getting their stories published they have in their heads? Any advice from the journey you've been on to do this?
Yeah, I think the best advice is just sit down and write things.
Mhm.
Tell a story. Writing
Ah,
books, I call myself an American author storyteller.
mhm.
And if you can tell a story, if you can tell a good joke all the way through the punchline, you can write a book, and
Oh,
that's what it's about, is just putting your story on paper or dictate it. It's just a matter of sitting down. It's not as hard as it seems.
ah, there you go. Well, that's a really good point. If you can tell a joke, you can write a book. I
Yes.
think I guess really, I mean, technically, when I wrote my book, I was in an accountability group with 3 other friends, and we were all trying to write the book. And of course, we all had busy lives, but it was during COVID, so that kind of helped. And um, but I was the only one over time that stuck with it. I think a lot of people were like excited by it, and then they got in, and there's like, there's work here, and they just found that oh geez, this is gonna take some effort, time, and everyone's got busy lives, so they did what they needed to do for their lives, and I took and just kept on grinding it, and it was my sole focus too. That kind of helped.
Sure.
And but yeah, it really was just, I think the hardest part for people is just to sit in there and stick with it. Writing our an accountability group, it was we wanted to write an hour a day, and that was really important. And just sticking with it. Sometimes I wouldn't have any ideas, and I would just be like, I don't know, just write something, and I would just babble about the page and just practice writing concepts. A lot of it went through just so many iterations and editing and all sorts of adjustments. So it was just putting in the time, but a lot of people don't. That's kind of why I think people revere authors, is because there's so much hard work that goes into it and dedication, and it's not easy. But I like the concept that you give to people, that if you can tell a story, if you can tell a joke, you have potential. You're not completely lost as a human being. Because I think most of us can tell stories. Do you think?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Or a joke.
And in writing, I did what I call storm writing on days, like
Oh,
you said, where you didn't have a clear path. It's
mhm,
just sit down and write. Don't
mhm.
read it, just write. You can always go back and read it and polish it up and clean it up. See if it even fits into your story.
Yeah.
And so storm writing usually occurred after my wife said, "Well, what if this happened?"
Ah.
And you'd keep going in different directions. I'm what they call a planning writer. I
Oh.
have a plan, but it's got to be flexible.
Mhm.
One other piece of advice was I wrote my chapters in my head. They were like weekly, um, not sitcom, but weekly dramatic episodes on a TV.
Okay.
And I could move them around as I assembled the book. I think what was my original first chapter ended up being about the 35th chapter. But it's just being flexible and piecing it together. And like you said, you do have to keep going. It
Mhm.
gets to be a little bit of a slog at times.
Yeah, you just have to push through it. I think one of the keys for me, and I recommended this to my friends, but everyone's got a different way of approaching things. But one of the, excuse me, one of the things that I would do is just, I would just word vomit onto the page. I would just sit and just what was coming through my head. I would just put it on the page, transpose it, yada, yada, yada. And that was a real key for me because, I knew there was going to be editing, right? So I'm
Oh yeah,
like, well, I know this is going to go through 5 or 6 iterations of editing. I know that this is going to constantly be an issue, and all that stuff. And so I'm like, I'm going to edit it later. So I'm just going to blast it out, and um, yeah, I'm just going to do that, and off we'll go. And so that's what I did. I just blasted it all on the page. I just spewed it out. Sometimes I just write for a couple days. I wouldn't even really look at it or edit it. And then a lot of my friends that I saw, they were like writing a sentence, editing that sentence, trying to write another sentence, then editing that sentence. And they would spend so much time going back and forth. It was almost like they lost the flow. And I can't speak for them because I wasn't doing it. But it was interesting to me that the pattern that I had to just word vomit onto the page and then worry about editing later, and not really try and not censor, but self edit myself as I was writing, made all the difference in the world. And I think it's one of the things that got me through it, where
yeah.
I was able to rock and roll. And so I don't know, man. Everyone's different, but to me that worked because I just accepted the fact that, hey, you know what? This is gonna be edited. So, you know, don't worry about it right now. Just get it on the page, blast it on the page, and worry about the editing later. And
That's good advice.
yeah.
Uh, I have a friend that has a saying: perfection is the enemy of progress. And if you sit down and you focus on one or two sentences, you're re-editing.
Oh yeah.
You'll only write one or two sentences. But
Yep.
if you, like you said, if you blast it out, I called it storm writing. You're going to go back and edit it. You're going to be with a professional editor eventually.
Yeah.
Striving for perfection really slows you down.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a really important lesson for those who might be trying to write out there. If you can, join an accountability group too. Like it sounds like the storm writing you were doing, you're making a way where you can isolate yourself and all that stuff. But for the most part, you know, having a schedule where you write for an hour a day. For me, I also had with my accountability group, we were supposed to write for an hour a day, and then we would put into a Google sheet that we'd done however many hours. So 1, 2, 3.5, whatever.
Sure.
And so there was peer pressure. And that peer pressure is a real motivation. Like I'd see if I missed a day or if I was busy or just wasn't in the mood, I would look at my friends and they were like, oh shit, they wrote an hour or 2 hours. And you're like, oh man, I gotta, you got FOMO or, I gotta keep up with the Joneses. Can't have my friends getting ahead of me. And so you would be really motivated to try and make that work. So there you go.
Writing with a team, I think, is more difficult. Writing alone has its own difficulties. I didn't have a team tracking me, but I had my wife saying,
uh-oh,
did you write anything today?
You bring up a good point. Maybe a wife, spouse is a good accountability partner. They whip that thing. They whip the chain or the whip there and say, get to work. But yeah, I mean, having somebody like that, that technically, I guess, would be an accountability partner. And that can be a great way to stay on point. But yeah, just having that thing. I know I've heard some writers, they have a what should we call it? They have a thing for like they just every morning they'll sit for an hour and do their deal and try and get it done, try and get it all nailed down, and then they'll be like, okay, I got it. Any final advice, thoughts, tease out you want to take and do before we go?
No, just if you tackle writing, enjoy it. Write for your own enjoyment. If nobody else ever sees it, make sure you craft a story that you enjoy reading. Get some personal satisfaction out of it.
Yeah. Enjoy the process. And don't worry about trying to write a book overnight. It takes time.
Long time.
Yeah, it takes a long time. And I mean, you took what, 5 years, I think it was, you said?
On this one.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. So, but go at your own pace, get the story right, get the story down. But like you said, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, my friends would make me mental that I was writing with. They're great people and wonderful. But they would try and edit every word, and they would try and be like, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's kind of a joke bit or a comedy scene in the movies or TV where they're like, what's that opening line from, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Sure.
I forget what the book is, but it has a great opening line, and some books have great opening lines to them. And I think some people try and write that way. They're like, I want to write something that's going to be magical. Honey, you're going to write 50,000 to 100,000 words. They're not all being magical. Just I used to just word vomit. I mean, I would sit and slam. Like, I think one time over July 4th weekend for 3 days, I just did 12 hours a day writing the book. It was in the final stages.
Wow.
And I did start to burn out a little bit. I was getting the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy experience. So once I started axing my way through bathroom doors, I said, this might be time to take a break. So I did.
There you go.
But but there you go. Give us your .com so we go out, give people a pitch out to order the book and get in touch with you, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the book is on Amazon. The website is stanleywrites.com. And there's a place you can send me a note. I always try to respond to people. And there's information on my website about what's happening next.
There you go. So give us let's see, order the book wherever fine books are sold, folks. It's called Collective Vengeance. A 27-year-old coerced abortion jeopardizes a Supreme Court nomination out June 15th, 2024. Thanks for tuning in. Refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, and Chris Voss 1, the TikTokity. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.